Hello, and welcome to Tioga County, PA Career Link's Professional Resumes and Cover Letters Workshop. In this workshop, we will be providing you an overview of the importance of both a resume and cover letter, types of resumes and cover letters, what to include, tips, and do's and don'ts. I'd like to start this workshop out with an activity. So go ahead and close your eyes for a second. Now you can open them and take a look and review the resume on the PowerPoint slide. And go ahead and close your eyes again. Did you remember anything on that resume? Most of the time, individuals remember the logo, maybe the name, and possibly the sections. You can go ahead and open your eyes again. It's hard to remember anything on this resume because it is a poorly written resume. There's too much information crammed into one page for an employer to take the time to look through it. Most employers or recruiters take only 5 to 7 seconds looking at your resume. So you want to keep that in mind when you are creating your own. And that's if a person is actually looking at your resume. Most of the time, employers are utilizing applicant tracking software. So if you think of the average job posting brings in about 250 resumes, the applicant tracking software can kick out 75% of them. So the applicant tracking software is looking for specific keywords that are related to the job you're applying for. Where do we find some of these keywords that we should include in our resume? Well, first, you'll want to look at the job description. Job descriptions are created out of the knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics, other known as the KSAOs, for actually doing the job. Go through and look through that job description and highlight the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are needed to perform the job. This is where you'll get some of your keywords. At times we get job descriptions that are very vague. In these cases, we can go to a resource online called ONET. ONET Online has tons of information on various job titles. You'll type in the job title in the search bar and select the one that most fits what it is that you're applying for. This will give you an intensive list of knowledge, skills, and abilities, as well as education, salary information for the job you're applying for. You can also utilize ONET when creating your job descriptions for the jobs you previously held. There are 3 different formats of resumes, and you need to select the one that fits the most for you. Now, we want to remember that our resume is like real estate. We want to ensure that the most important information on there is showcased for the employer to see if you're going to be a good fit. The first format is a chronological format. This is the format you probably already have. If you're registered in the PA Career Link, then you have a chronological formatted resume. This shows all of your work experience in reverse chronological order, and it's fantastic for job seekers that have a stable, solid career progression. And it is also the most commonly used format. Here's an example of a chronological formatted resume. You have your experience listed in reverse chronological order, education, and any other information needed. Another format is called the functional format. This format makes it so that the employer is focused on your skills and achievements. It's great for job seekers who do not have a stable employment or they're lacking in experience. You can just talk more and show more and showcase more of your skills. However, many employers will become suspicious of this format, believing that you're trying to hide something. So be mindful of that as well when you're selecting the format for your resume. Here's an example of a functional format. Here's a skills summary, professional accomplishments. So they'll list a skill and then go into more detail on how that skill relates to the job you're applying for. Your work history is then listed in reverse chronological order, lacking job descriptions. Education is there as well. The last format is a combination format. It's also known as a hybrid format. This format best showcases your skills as well as your work experience. It's a mixture of both of the other formats that we discussed. It's great for job seekers with emphasis on their skills over their work history, but it's also providing the employer information on that work history. Employers can quickly see how you match up to the qualifications that they are seeking with this type of format. So here's an example of a hybrid format. There's a skills section, as well as experience, a nice little job description for each experience, and then further down is the education. Next, we'll be going over basic sections of a resume. Now remember, this is your resume, so you can move these sections wherever you'd like to on your resume. You can include different sections, but just make sure that you are keeping in mind what's pertaining to the job you're applying for. Here we have a resume. This is a hybrid format, or that combination format. The first thing we see is the header. So we have the name, address, phone number, and email address. Believe it or not, your header is the most important part of your resume. This is how the employer is going to contact you. The resume is to get us an interview, not to get us the job. So we need to ensure that this information is up to date. This is also a place where you can be creative and stand out from the other applicants. The next section is a summary, formerly known as an objective. If you decide to keep an objective statement, make sure it's clear and concise and to the point. I highly suggest creating a professional summary, as this will give the employer a snapshot of what it is that you can provide them. A summary is for 2 to 3 sentences, really focusing on what you can offer the employer. Kind of think of it as an infomercial, just to kind of give an overview. The next section is highlights. This is what I call a skills cluster. In a skills cluster, this is a great place to add some of those keywords you weren't able to insert somewhere else in your resume. These are specific skills that relate to the job that you're applying for. When I talk about skills, a lot of the time we're automatically go to the on-the-job skills that we know that we have. But I also want you to think about transitional skills. These are skills that we can easily move from one occupation to another. A good transitional skill would be communication. So having effective communication, be it oral, written, or nonverbal, would be a great skill to have in any position that you hold. An adaptive skill would be the skill that you have adapted to creating a better skill. So you're continuously working on it. Adaptive skills would be more of those technical computer type skills. It's something that you're progressively getting better at. Soft skills. These are skills that we would be able to show the employer when we're in the interview. Making eye contact. Are we able to work with others? Do we work better independently? Those are those soft skills you want to look at. Is the job description requesting that you work with a group? Make sure that you include those soft skills on your resume. Then we have our on-the-job skills. These are the skills that we have learned and developed on the job. So for example, if you're a cashier, maybe one of your on-the-job skills would be running a register. Or a CNC operator, maybe one of your skills would be programming tools. These are skills that we gain from job experience. So think of all of these skills when you're making your skills cluster and make sure that it relates to the job you're applying for. The next section of a resume is the experience. You'll also start noticing now each section separates itself from the rest of the information on the resume. We want to make sure that we are sectioning off our work so that an employer can scan through and find what it is that they're looking for. In your experience and work experience, previous experience, this could be labeled as relevant experience. Think of how you're going to label your sections. In this section, you want to include all of your experience. Most of the time, employers only want to see about 10 years of your experience. Make sure you're focusing on the most recent experience that you have. So those recent jobs that you've held. You'll want to include the dates, the job title, the company, and the location of the company. After you have that listed out, you can include your job description. In the job description, I highly suggest refraining from putting in items that the employer would probably already assume was one of your responsibilities. So for example, if you were a cashier, the employer would already know that you were able to run a cash register. They would be more interested in your accomplishments. Have you increased revenue? Did you save the company some money? Did customer return rate go up? Wherever you can quantify any numbers or any accomplishments that you've achieved, you should include it here in the job description. Achievement statements are going to set you apart from other applicants on your resume. Accomplishments are going to show three things: the precise actions you took in a given situation, skills and abilities you used when facing the challenge, and then lastly, the result that you achieved. So for example, on my resume, I could list that I was praised for the ability to solve difficult problems independently and efficiently. Entrusted to work and uphold protocol within corporate office among high-level executives. And then you could also include quantifying. So reconciled end-of-day receipts with cash and credit transactions to account for daily sales averaging $1,500. So kind of think back to the jobs that you've held. Can you think of any accomplishment stories? Go ahead and take those stories and stick them into this formula so that you can provide accomplishment statements on your resume. The next section we have is education. Now the rule of thumb is if you have high school, put high school down, but do not put the date that you graduated. This can age you. If you have college, don't list high school. Just list your college. In college courses, you can add the date of graduation, as we can participate in college at any point in time in our lives. So it will not age you. With the education, you want to ensure that you let them know where you graduated from, the location, and the courses that you took. So maybe you obtained your high school diploma or obtained your bachelor's of science. Maybe it's a training course. Make sure you include that information. The last section is certifications. This last section I like to call our other section. So if you still have room, this last section should be anything that you want to provide on your resume that relates to the job you're applying for. Isabella used certifications as her certification is important to the job she's applying for. You could also include some community service, professional affiliates, anything that you think would give you a step up on the competition can be listed here in the other section. Now, if you keep in mind that your resume is real estate, you want to make sure that the important information is on the resume. So if it's not important, do not list it. So because we're going to be writing a resume specific to the jobs we're applying for, I highly suggest creating a master resume. Your master resume is going to include all of the jobs that you've ever held, all of the skills that are available to you, all of the knowledge and education that you have. And then you'll select the most important to put onto the resume for different types of jobs that you're applying for. Yes, this is going to take a little more time, but it is going to benefit you in the end. So here are some tips for your resume. Create a professional email address. This could be your first last name, first initial last name. Just make sure that it's professional. Update your contact information. Make sure your header is always correct. That's how the employer is going to contact you. You want to keep your font size to 10 to 12 points. You'll always use reverse chronological order in your work history unless you are providing another section that is for relevant work experience only. Align your content to the left to make it skimmable. So all of your sections should be at the left and set apart from everything else so that the employer can find the section that they're looking for quickly. To set your sections apart from everything else, you can use bold, caps, and italics. Choose an attractive and readable font. Try to avoid any comic or funny-looking font, as these first impressions matter. Only add jobs that you've had in the past 10 years. Now we know that you may have more experience than that, but remember, the resume is just to get you the interview. In the interview, you can talk about all of the experience that you have. You can give your section simple subheadings. You can include URLs to your social media profiles, such as LinkedIn. LinkedIn is going to give you an electronic resume for employers to look at. Choose a resume format that works for you. So we went over 3 different formats. You'll want to select the one that best fits your situation. What's going to showcase your skills best. You'll also want to try to avoid using any Microsoft templates, as it's very hard to manipulate those to showcase what you want, where you want it. Do's and don'ts for a resume. You want to keep it to 1 page unless you're creating a CV, which is a completely different format that was not discussed. You don't want to squish in all of the information. Much like our example in the beginning, there was too much information, couldn't read it very well, and it was very hard to skim. So white space is your friend. You want to highlight your most relevant experiences. Again, keep it down to 10 years. Optimize for the applicant tracking system, so use those keywords throughout your resume. Don't use more than 2 fonts. you do want to use data. So wherever you can quantify in your achievement statements will help you stand out. Make sure you're offsetting so that your job titles in the companies that you've worked for are standing out from the rest of the information. Don't include random, unrelated, or off-putting hobbies. Employers want to know how you fit up to those KSAOs and nothing more. You do want to ensure that you're separating your content. And don't include work with controversial organizations. Now it's time for cover letters. Cover letters are important because it gives you the opportunity to really showcase your written communication. You're also able to let the reader know what your immediate value is. Your personality, your enthusiasm are all bundled up in your cover letter. Your cover letter should introduce your resume and intrigue the reader to continue reading. There are different types of cover letters. There's an application letter, a referral letter, interest letter, and a networking letter. Application letter. An application letter is written for a specific job opening that you're applying for. So this is the most traditional cover letter, and that's the example I'll be using today. But again, there are other ways to find out what jobs are open. A referral cover letter is going to mention someone who has referred you to that job position. Now, this is a great way to kind of make a connection to the company, but you want to make sure the person that is referring you and the name that you're mentioning is going to be an asset. So are they a good worker? Are they important to their company? Be mindful of those things, as we don't want the opposite to happen. Letters of interest. So maybe you're fresh out of college, you've got your degree, you know what companies you want to work for. This would be the letter format you would want to utilize. This is going to ask that company if there's any particular job openings in the company that fit well or match well with the abilities you have. A networking letter. This would be a cover letter that you would send your resume to various organizations, people that you're working with and talking to, just to kind of see if they know of anything. So 65% of job openings are found out through networking. So networking letter will benefit you in that way. Next, we're going to talk about the basic sections of a cover letter. Again, we have our header, the first section we see. The header has our name, our contact information, and it must stay up to date. As you can see from our example of our sections of a resume, the header here is the same. This will make it so that if one piece is missing, they can put them back together. It's going to also start branding you, and it's also showing the employer your attention to detail. First, we have our salutation. This is where we list who we're writing the letter to. So who is our reader? Do you have a specific name? Can you find out the specific name? Try your best to try and write the letter to a specific person. If you cannot find out who you're writing the letter to, you can utilize Dear Hiring Manager, Dear Company Name, Recruiter, and avoid To Whom It May Concern, as this again will start aging you. Try your best to find out who you're writing the letter to. So going back to high school, the first paragraph of anything that we write is our introduction. With our introduction to a cover letter, we're going to let the employer know what position we're applying for, where we found the position so that they can continue utilizing that service. And we're going to drop a bomb of our chief qualification. What sets you apart from everybody else who's applying for this position? What is your chief qualification? So as you're creating your resume and looking at the job description, keep that in mind. Try and find out what your chief qualification is for this position. The next thing that we write about, or the next paragraph in anything that we write, is our body. In the body of our cover letter, we're going to go into more detail on how we possess the knowledge, skills, and abilities the employer is looking for. We are not repeating our resume, as this is introducing our resume to the employer, intriguing them to want to read your resume. So give them a little more detail on how you have the KSAOs they're looking for. This letter format is utilizing bullet points. Bullet points are helpful for employers as they will skim through and find out what it is that sets you apart from everyone else. Again, you'll want to pick the format that fits best for you. Bullet points is a good way to showcase the most important information that you want to include in your resume for that employer to read. Lastly, the last paragraph of anything that we write is called our conclusion. When we're concluding our cover letter, we want to make sure that we're letting them know that you appreciate them taking the time to read over your information. You'll let them know that your resume or any other information is attached. Let them know the best way to contact you, and that you're available for any more information if needed. Now, if we're doing an online application, there is always the ability to attach extra documents. So if there's no place for a cover letter, go ahead and attach a cover letter to those additional documents. If you are emailing your resume to an employer, the composition of your email or the body of your email is going to be your cover letter. So only attach necessary documents. Lastly, we're going to sign off on our letter with a nice sincerely, and then we're going to type our name. Now remember, if you're mailing this out, don't forget to sign your name. If you're doing this electronically, you can use a fancy font. And remember, writing a cover letter is only going to help you rise above your competition. So some tips on cover letters. Make sure your contact information is the same as what's on your resume. So make sure your headers are the same. Again, it's going to show that attention to detail. Ensure that you're reviewing that job announcement. Now, we've already catered our resume to the job announcement. We should know what it's looking for. Highlight those keywords. Again, we can utilize the keywords throughout our cover letter, knowing what to talk more about. Address a specific person if possible. Again, you can use hiring manager or company name recruiter, but try your best to try and find out who the person is that will be reading your cover letter. Your cover letter should draw attention to the most important information on your resume. It should not repeat your resume. And again, be sensitive of naming someone who recommended you. This isn't always a good thing. Do's and don'ts of a cover letter. Don't skip a cover letter just because it's hard to do. Think of all of the other applicants, those other 250 people that are applying for the same job that possibly are skipping the cover letter. Again, wherever you can go above and beyond your competition is going to get you a foot up. You're going to use that job description to guide you. And remember, we're not repeating our resume. Let them know the specific job you're applying for and focus on how you can benefit their company. Cover letter is going to demonstrate your effective written communication. We're going to keep it clear and concise. Check your grammar and spelling on both your resume and your cover letter. Don't rely on just Microsoft spell check. Walk away for a little while, come back and reread it, print it out or share with relatives or friends, because they might pick up on something that you didn't. Ensure that you end your letter with, "I look forward to meeting with you to further discuss my qualifications." Let them know that you are interested and that they can contact you and that you're readily available. So that covers the importance of resumes and cover letters, the types of both, what you should include and what you shouldn't include, tips, and of course, do's and don'ts of both a resume and cover letter. I hope that this information was helpful and that you're ready to create a more professional resume and a spot-on cover letter to help you put your best foot forward in your job search. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook at pacl.tioga. If you have any further questions, do not hesitate to reach out to us via Facebook Messenger. Have a great day, and thank you again.